Okay, so everyone, very warm welcome to this session, this pre-event for the Leading Complexity program, which will be about modern management. And with us today, we have Dr. Annika Steiber. She is a best-selling author, investor, and executive of the RenDanHeYi Silicon Valley Research Center. She has 3 decades research on management for a digital world and has written 11 books. Wow, hats off for that. Which of the latest is Leadership for a Digital World, the transformation of GE appliances. So the Silicon Valley-based research centers was founded in 2020 and offers the next generation webinars, certification courses, and corporate programs to forward-looking business leaders all over the world. So handing over to you, Annika. Very happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. And as you can see in the background, this is actually the Menlo College campus. We are just next door to Stanford, maybe 7 minutes of bike ride between us. Historically, this was a boys' school when that still existed, and it was a pre-program to get a guaranteed avenue into Stanford University. I'm the director of the, we call it the RenDanHeYi Research Center here. It's a center focused on executive ed, and I'm sitting in the building that is just behind me. So let me start with just getting my presentation up, and I do want to have a lot of time for discussion. I know I've already seen that we have a very distinguished group of people in this webinar, which it's very thrilling. High quality of people, definitely, and I know several of you have very distinguished competence in the area. So I do want to have some room for questions. So the focus of today and this webinar, which is a pre-webinar for your super interesting program coming up called Leading Complexity, is Leadership in a Digital World. And as you can figure out, digital world and complexity sort of correlate heavily with each other. I want to just give you a very short background what we do. This center started in 2020, and it was based on a huge frustration from my side. I've been living in Silicon Valley at that point 11 years, and still there was no center, no one pinpointing management innovation for the digital age. We talk about technology innovation all the time, but no one had a professional center focused on management innovation. And if you would come to Silicon Valley or been to Silicon Valley, you know that most of the big companies like the Google, the Facebook, the Tesla, they all understand one common thing, and that is not what they do. That is maybe the most important thing, because that is easy to copy. It's how they do it. So we decided to start this center, focusing then or having a mission to support business professionals by providing 21st century business skills. Because we also know, and we've seen that even the business schools are lagging behind. In many cases, we are teaching our young ones, the future leaders, skills that were, relevant for 50 years ago or 30 years ago, which is pretty scary, because when we let them out on the workforce, they are not very relevant for the employer. So, and I guess that is maybe one reason why more and more students now want to have work experience as part of their university degree, because that is the only way to learn the real skills of 21st century. So we wanted to change that. We wanted to provide the 21st century skill set. So we do this in 3 different ways: webinars, open virtual leadership program, which are very short, very dense, but heavily focused on the latest knowledge in specific areas. And then we do corporate specific virtual or in-person leadership program. We actually have several delegations coming over to Silicon Valley now during the autumn with Swedish executives and also board of directors. So that is very thrilling and interesting for us. And we try to take this 360-degree view on or mindset on the new business skills, everything from strategic framework, how you lead a company, how you organize your company, how you work with ecosystem for growth, how you work with your customer interface and customers and users, and of course also focus on technology. So we try to take this 360-degree approach. If you're interested, you go to our website, executive.menlo.edu. It's also on the website of CRISP, and we are collaborating. So I'm very thrilled over that. And hopefully, when you're done your fabulous course with CRISP, if you want to do something extra, you can turn to us. Yes, one more thing. Next course coming up, I promised to say that, is our course coming up on October 27. It's Leading for Exponential Impact in the Digital Age. It's going to be focused on similar things that we discussed today. And with us, we will have also the Google case and the TEA case, which is part of the book that Thomas just mentioned, Leading in the Digital World, the Transformation of GE Appliances. So you will learn about that case in that course, as well as the Google way of leading. And then, of course, we will have John Hagel together with me as the lead instructors. And John Hagel is a Fortune 500 advisor. He's also working with the World Economic Forum and the Global Peter Drucker Forum on Leadership. So it's a pretty heavy list of people in that course, and it's only 12 hours. And you will learn a bunch. Okay, so let's go over to the focus of today. I think looking at the participation list of this webinar, this is absolutely no news for you. But the fact is, and it's pretty scary, we're running companies and even leading companies, back from the age when this picture was taken from Ford. That is in the beginning of the 1900s. In fact, in the beginning of the 1900s, we actually had the most influential researchers coming out with their research on leadership and management in early 1900s. And after that, we have had a gap. And it wasn't until Drucker came out later, more closer to the 2000s, when he implemented and announced a whole new way of looking at leadership and management of the firm. We are many researchers that feel a frustration. Have been spending our life doing research on this new animal that is necessary for the 21st century. Gary Hamel is one, David Teese is another. I'm, one of them. We are many, and I cannot mention them all. But as you can see here, Gary Hamel think that, and this was stated already in 2009, which I love because it's very early out, where he say that equipping organizations to tackle this revolution now in the sort of the environment in the industry will also require a revolution in management. And David Teese, of course, is with his dynamic capability concept, focusing on the business environment is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And as you learn, it's called VUCA. It's actually coming from the American military. And of course, he also states that management cannot continue to be the same way it has been, right? So we are living in an extremely complex and uncertain world. And I'm actually working with the ISO 56001, the innovation management standard right now. And at this morning, we discussed how will we explain, models for how to tackle uncertainty in innovation decisions. So in any part of the organization, we need to deal with this complex and uncertain environment. And what most of us researchers would claim is that we're standing in front of a paradigm shift. We have the traditional management style and we have the new management style, and those are fighting against each other. It's almost like the climate change, where you have the conservative fighting that there is no climate change, and then you have the new one, that the enlightened one, that understand that there's definitely a change, and they usually then are leading and they go ahead of all us, all the other companies, to also transform their companies. And I will say that the quicker organizations understand that they cannot hold on to the traditional management style, similarly to that there is no climate change, the faster we will be also building very competitive nations. Because of course, the competitiveness of the organizations are affecting on a macro level the competitiveness of the nation. And that is a scary thing. We already see now different countries taking up a lead together with the USA because they have a different leadership style. And if you know my old book, I talk about the Silicon Valley model in my previous books, where I claim that it was a cradle for this new management style. It was born over here because the information technology was born here. That is not the case anymore. Now we see very, very much innovation in management from other places. And I come back to that. So what happened with the companies that are not able to change is that they will die. It's just a matter of time. It's a matter of it's 10 years or 15 years or even 20 years. But if they don't change and they don't run the company in a different way, they will be outcompeted by others. And one way of looking at this is the Standard & Poor's 500 list, where the lifespan of a company went from 61 years down to 18. I think it's even 15 years now. And that is pretty scary. That means that you might not die and go bankrupt, but you might be purchased and acquired, right? Because you are not competitive enough. And when you're not competitive enough, you're becoming cheaper and other one can buy you, right? And acquire you. So if we don't want our Swedish companies or Norwegian companies or wherever you are, your companies in the nation to be acquired by foreign companies, or to die and go bankruptcy, we need to start focusing truly on management innovation of the firm. Here are just some examples of companies that have already, they're gone. They are gone. They exist in a small fashion, like Kodak, for example, is still existing. And of course, the Saab technology is, used today. But the main message here is that it took them less than 10 years, more or less, to die before they, from when they understood that, okay, this is not going very well. And then they try and they try and they try, and they're taking new CEOs and they try to transform the culture, and they do a lot of things usually before they finally have to give in. Kodak is a very famous example on that. And if you're interested in this field, I'm sure you have read about the Kodak case. It's well presented among researchers all over the world, where they try to figure out how could it come that Kodak, that was the first one with digital camera, couldn't make it, right? And that is what we're coming into now. It's much bigger than one quick solution. It's a holistic solution that is necessary, and you need to take a board or an executive perspective on your company in order to make this happen. So the problem is that they can't change. It's not that they can't change fast enough. I had that before, but I changed it to they can't change. That is a brutal reality. They don't change. And I think you can mention on your own hand right now a number of companies that you know that have not changed. And you might even be employed by those companies. You might sit in boards in companies where you know that most board of directors are not focusing on the future. We are in such a situation which is screaming for, you know, new methods, new mindsets, and hopefully this presentation together with, of course, Chris' program and others could help out. So what are the 3 critical questions for any executive? If you would simplify it, you could say it's 3. And those are critical right now for this complex and very uncertain world. The first one is, in an age of change, how do you be fast and adaptable as well as focused and efficient? How can you do both? It's not okay anymore to do, okay, we do 5 years of being fast, adaptable, then we do 5 years of focused and efficient, then we do 5, you know, this kind of sequential approach. Okay, that was the best case before. That is not enough anymore. And only to focus on, you know, efficiency and quality problems is definitely the way to death, right? So, so we need to handle both. The next one is, in the innovation economy, how do you innovate quickly and boldly enough to stay relevant and profitable? And I'm not talking about incremental innovation. I'm not talking about innovation as a new feature or as a new small thing of your current products. I'm talking about whole new segments and new product segments. I'm talking about new product categories. In best case, I'm talking about totally new billion-dollar businesses. What John Hager would say, your edge. How do you create those edge businesses in parallel with driving your core business that is already a multi-billion-dollar business? How can you do that in parallel? And then the third one, in a creative economy, how do you inspire employees to bring initiative, ideas, and passion? We are so good to kill this creativity and kill this inspiration and passion of the employees. We cannot do that because we will not survive. We need to build our future and our success on everyone's capability in the company. Some people, they don't want to be an entrepreneur and innovator. That is okay. We need them too. But the one that wants to be that, we need to be able to take care of them. And we need to use those great ideas to create the next billion-dollar business, or to you know, stay competitive on the market, whatever that takes. And there's the presentation. No. So a new management model has evolved. So the good thing in this sort of pretty dark reality is that there's a light, and there are a lot of companies that have seen the light and have been doing it. You see that most of those are new generation companies. They are born on the internet technology, like the Google, like the Amazon, like the Facebook, the Netflix, right? But you also have companies that have been doing incredibly well, that are hardware companies, like the Haier, right? Like the GE Appliances, like the Tesla, like the Xiaomi from China. So there's no reason anymore. There's no excuses anymore to say, yeah, but they are, you know, they are tech companies over there, they're internet-based company. This is not relevant for us. If you do have that kind of argument, you will most probably be on that turn your downturn down your 10 years to potential death, right? And we don't want that. Specifically, we want to protect our country, we want to protect our companies, and we want to protect our employees. We don't want to do that. So, as I said before, it's not really what they do. I mean, if you look at this, come on, higher. White goods, Xiaomi. Mobile phones, GE Appliances is also white goods. Tesla, cars, right? It's not unique products in it per se, right? It's not that, oh my God, they do car. Oh my God, they do a washing machine. That is not per se what is unique. The common factors between those success cases is that they have set a total new set of management principles. Their belief in how you run a company is totally different, 360-degree different from how traditional companies believe in how to manage a company. And the other thing is that they understand one thing. It's not what you offer, it's why and how you do it. Right? So I know Tesla, for example, people are, it's almost like the Mecca. They're coming to Tesla to learn about, how they do product development, how they do production. It's totally different from, most traditional companies in the automotive sectors, but they're learning now. So it's not what you offer, it's why and how you do it. So let's go over to a number of set of key principles, and I need to keep track of my time here. So in my book, the latest book that I published, and also the other books, I come back to more or less 6 primary principles that you can apply to any company and that they all have to have. The first one is that they have to have dynamic capabilities. Dynamic capabilities, the short version, it means that you are able as a company to adapt in a similar fashion, similar pace as your environment. That means that you have to build capabilities to be able to do that. If you would listen to Professor David Tees, for example, at Berkeley Law School of Business, a friend of mine, also part of our program, he would say it's about 3 things. You have to sense what's going on very efficiently. You have to be able to very efficiently seize the opportunities. You have to transform your business and your business model. You have to be very good at those 3 things. Agile is, of course, related to that. You need to have structures, processes, and a mindset, and also people that act in a more agile way of doing things. There is not one standardized way of working for the next 10 years. You might work in a certain way in a couple of years, and then you have to change. It's due to technology. It might be that the business is not doing that well. You have to quickly change to and build up a new business. So then we come to the human-centric part. The human-centric means that the successful companies, they understand that the humans are the core. They are the center of the universe of the company. They are the one that will save you. They are the one that will come up with ideas to make sure that your company can continuously be successful and relevant on the market. They're usually the one also that know your business best. It might be the people closest to your customers. It might be the people that are closest to your product. You need to be able to get all those human beings to be passionate about what they do and also to contribute to the future of the company. And that is not easy. That is a leadership style you need to adopt that allow that. You need to have a culture that allow that, and you need to have an organization setting and even HR processes that allows this to happen. There's a lot of soft factors here that is just key for the future organization. Then if we go to the next one, we'll start from the bottom here, ambidextrous. Any company, as I said before, will need to be able to innovate and do your core business in parallel. And this sounds maybe easy, but it's very, very hard because we don't talk about incremental innovation anymore. We talk about more disruptive, we talk about the new billion-dollar businesses. And that is not commonly something that the traditional business is good to do. How many of the traditional businesses that you know about have been actually disrupting the industry by creating the new businesses? Usually not. But they do have to acquire the tech startup that do it. So you have to build a structure. If you do it internally yourself, or if you make sure that you're aligned with the startup ecosystem to make it happen, it's your choice, but you need to be ambidextrous. You need to be able to do both. Open innovation. You cannot believe that the company is a closed organism anymore. Any closed system will self-die. We know that from physics. You need to open up the boundaries, and you need to allow innovation from outside to be able to come into your company. You also need to put out innovation from your company out on the market if you cannot handle it. If it's not on your priority list, it's not in your strategy, hand it out, put it on the market, take a small ownership of it or a large ownership of it, but capitalize on it. And then finally, systemic. In order to do all those things, you need to have always a holistic view of your company. You need to look and act as a board member or as a CEO. In any position of your company, you need to understand the holistic picture, and specifically if you try to design the new company, the company culture, the new sort of technical structure of your company, you have to have a systemic view on it. Okay, so many of those things are something you can read about in my book, Leadership for a Digital World. As you heard, is the 11th book that have come out. I think it's actually my best so far. But if you do want to learn more about Silicon Valley, or if you do want to learn more about China, there are books before this book where you can learn about how Chinese are doing it and how Silicon Valley companies are managing the firm much more in detail than this book. This book is more about why does management need to change? What are the new principles for the leadership of the firm, and the transformation of GE appliances. And the reason why I wrote this is that there are so few cases out there that truly give a detailed description of how you transform a company. So I wanted to give the world this book and the transformation of GE appliances. So let's go into a little bit more details about what you can find in that book. We have already gone through the main pillar of the new management model. That was what I did just recently. What comes later in the book is I need to go into the case of Haier. The Haier bought and acquired GE appliances in 2016, and they started to transform their own business in 2000. Today, they are a Chinese multinational home appliance and consumer electronic company. They are in Shandong, in Qingdao. They are over 100,000 employees. Yes, they do hardware and also a lot of software and services today. They have a market cap that is 3.5 times Whirlpool's corporations. And Whirlpool was the biggest home appliance company in the US. So they do something very well. And you can see on this curve, this is actually a curve showing how their stock price have changed. And you can see that something happens in 2010. That was when they introduced their new management model. They have been then experimenting for years. In 2010, they implemented it and they called it RenDanHeYi. And you can see how this is spiking after that, just going uphill. So what were the key insights? The key insight in 2000 was that, one, we have to embrace the internet or become irrelevant. In fact, they embraced the internet so much, so they even adopted the same kind of mindset for their organization. So today, they don't have any functions. They don't have a matrix organization. They have an organization that is built up by micro enterprises. The micro enterprises can be very small, up to, max 15 people. They can also be a little bit bigger. They are clustered into two kind of micro enterprises. One are the new that will build the new company, hire the new businesses, and the other cluster are the core business. They are looked as nodes on the internet. and they all are independent, and they are served by service platforms. Instead of functions, service functions, they have platforms that are serving them. So for example, marketing and HR could be seen as a service that they are using, that are offered through platforms. The other one was technology innovation. That is key to create new demand and market. The people has to be encouraged to innovate, and even more importantly, the culture is the fulfillment of own value. The fulfillment of own value means that everyone that want and are able to become an entrepreneur should be able to become an entrepreneur. The main principle of RenDanHeYi are 6. First, customer. We don't talk about customer focus anymore. We talk about zero distance to users. And that means a lot. It's a very much difference. You co-create with users is one of the difference, for example. Micro enterprises, like a node on the internet. Independent businesses, smaller, faster, more agile, and more innovative. And they all fronted towards the market and the users. So that is the leading navigator. They all should be having zero distance to users. Employees, everyone becomes an entrepreneur. Okay, everyone is inspired and is encouraged to become an entrepreneur. If you don't want to become an entrepreneur, you can still work in one of those micro enterprises. But the career now is to become a founder of a new one. Or you can also be a head of a platform. That's another career. So it's a different career track. Compensation. You are mostly compensated by pay by users. If you do well on the market, you get more money. If you don't get that much money. Leadership, non-linear. Leadership is stepping back. In Agile, I think some speak about servant leadership. It's a similar thing. But here, non-linear leadership is also about focusing on the 10x growth. Make sure that the people not just are, decentralized power and are enabled to do their work in the best way they can, but also that the leadership makes sure that you secure the growth of the company at all time. Ecosystem, you don't work as a vertical closed system anymore as a company. You work as a part of an ecosystem, an enterprise without boundaries. I don't have that much time, so I will go quickly into GE Appliances. In 2016, they were slowly dying. They had slow growth. They focused on internally and on cost control. They had a very high risk-averse culture, extremely bureaucratic organization. I measured them. They had to tell me how they perceived the company in 2016 and 2021. I promise you, it was 2 different companies based on those graphs that I produced, and still the same. So how did that go? How did that even happen? They did the change guided by RenDanHeYi, and the principal change was that they stopped thinking about a corporation. They started to think about the corporation as a platform, with the nodes, with the micro enterprises. The hierarchy became instead a networked organization with the micro enterprises. Management became non-linear leadership. Employees became entrepreneurs, and they were expected to be entrepreneurs. Pay by enterprise means you have a fixed salary, independent of what you do. Was changed to pay by users, and the firm as a closed system is changed into a win-win ecosystem. If you would do those change in beliefs, in principles, management principles, you will, as you can understand, see a whole different organization and a company. So I will quickly close up with saying that they are fulfilling also all the different capabilities. They definitely have dynamic capabilities today because of the decentralization, their networked organization. The CEO now has much more time. I wouldn't say huge. They have much more time to focus on future businesses and future opportunities. They have grown from 4 businesses to 14 businesses. That was in 2021. Also a number of other things like creating the customer focused units, the micro enterprises involve everyone, created dynamic capabilities. They became more aware of where they had to go, and also much more faster to seize opportunities. Agile, it followed with it. Human-centric, yes, they decentralize the 3 rights, which means that every human being in the organization of GEA today have much more responsibility and power, and also are encouraged to innovate. So of those new businesses, several came from within. Systemic, yes, they took a holistic perspective. Open innovation, absolutely. They have also first built as a platform to innovate with external innovation. And then in addition to that, they have opened up for innovation also to bring it in other ways. Ambidextrous, absolutely. Again, they have this new governance structure where they can actually build up new businesses in parallel with the core business. They wouldn't have been going from 4 to 14 businesses if they couldn't be ambidextrous. So the result is that they have become the fastest growing appliance company in the US. They won the Smart Home Appliance Company for 4 consecutive years after 2016, and they also certified as the best place to work by its own employees. And now over to questions. We have some minutes for questions. According to my watch, we have 7 more minutes. So now I need help to identify if there are any questions.
Yes, and I would like to add that we are recording this session. So if you are writing something in the Q&A and we will read it, it will be also recorded, just so that you know. While waiting for people to write questions, I would like to say that when I read your book about RenDanHeYi, my feeling is that RenDanHeYi is for innovative companies as Lean or the Toyota Production System has been for production. Would you agree to that?
I think that is a great analogy. Absolutely. Lean Lean is perfect for quality assurance and quality management, and for your core business. RenDanHeYi is all about how do you create the 10x growth or even more. And also, how do you, if you know that your machines will be dead, how do you transform your business model from A to Z, right? Because that is what they need to do now.
Yeah, and also I think it's fantastic to read about this GE appliances that going from a quite stiff bureaucratic company in just 5 years becoming very innovative. It's really interesting. And we now have a question. Before that, I would just like to, let's start with the question. Okay, so from Anonymous, was a GE transformation possible to do with the same set of higher management as before, or was it necessary to change the managers? And higher is not the name of the company that bought GE. It was GE Appliances. It's just the top management.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I would like to answer it in 2 ways. One, they didn't fire anyone according to themselves. They didn't have to exchange the leaders. And number 2, higher did not get, as the owner of a company, didn't get and force them to do this. As the normal process might have been, sitting in the board of GEA, forcing you to do a change. Instead, what did happen, and I think was a success, and it was actually driven from higher in an extremely professional way by one certain man, that was that they allowed 1 year of a learning process. So it started with the VP of technology, Kevin Nolan. He now is the CEO. He was so frustrated because they had been GE divested one of their growth businesses. So one of the GEA's growth businesses. And he was so frustrated, and he brought this up with the new owner, Higher. And this guy that was, responsible for the integration and for, sort of making sure that GEA and Higher sort of, came on good terms with each other, told Kevin Nolan that if you would have adopted RenDanHeYi, you would never have sold off that business. And that sort of triggered his interest for the whole concept. So that is what they did. They triggered the interest of a frustrated person that then became the CEO. So Kevin Nolan have been in GE and GA for his more or less whole career, and they turned him into the CEO, and then they coached him for more or less a year before he formally became the CEO. So from 2016, he was the VP technology still. 2017 in June, they put him as a CEO. And during that time, they have been more or less educating and training in the mindset, those key people at GEA, including the product lead owners. So the one that became the micro enterprise, new sort of CEOs of the micro enterprises, they were product leaders before. They were heading up a product line. So those were also part of the key people that they had coaching sessions with, more or less, you can call it with. And then they also involved them to bring up their own solution for how to solve this. I think those were this way of doing it was extremely successful.
Great, thank you very much. We have a question from Göran as well. Who owns HeYi, and what significance does that have?
Right. So HeYi is not state-owned. It's not owned by the Chinese government. But as you know, and I think this is maybe what you're looking for, Chinese corporation always are very, well aligned with the Chinese government. But you also know then that the Chinese government today is a very interesting mix of, that kind of close control of companies together with almost a more brutal market economy than in the USA. So the Alibaba and the Tencent and the HeYi and Xiaomi and those companies, they are today, they were born, because of that the government actually allow a market economy sort of in a parallel. So it's an interesting economic system that China has right now, where they are doing both.
Great. We are at the end time. Maybe you can stay and we still have some questions. We can answer that. But if people would like to leave, first of all, I would like to send you all a link to the Leading Complexity program. And in this program, we will meet Bill Fisher, who also had been researching on GE appliances, if I'm correctly right.
Bill Fisher is working at this center as well, yes. And yes. I work with him in many different projects. So yes, so don't miss that one.
No. And we will also meet Joe Justice, who's been working at Tesla, which so we can hear a lot about that case as well. And also, I would like to add that the next week we will have another session, a free webinar. This time it will be from the Inner Development Goals, IGG, and it will be Michael Bernstedt who will be talking about how can inner development contribute to sustainable planet, and that is September 14. I will send you a link to that as well, and it's a free webinar, so you can register and listen in to him. So if you would like to leave now, thank you very much for participating. But Annika, would it be okay with you to continue with at least a few of the questions? It's a lot of questions coming in now, yes. Which I guess is just showing how interesting this is.
So shall we see, we have a question from Eric Schön. Shall we see if we can, maybe he could unmute and we can answer, he could put his question.
Let's see if I can unmute him. So, Eric, you should now be able to speak yourself.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Annika, for a great inspirational talk. I'm a bit curious. I was in a webinar a couple of months back with you and with Zhang Ruimin, who's the ex-CEO and ex-chairman of Hire, and he mentioned that there are some inspiration from him from old Chinese thought leaders from 2,500 years back, like Sun Tzu when it comes to flexible strategy to handle VUCA world, and also Lao Tzu when it comes to leadership, more like servant leadership. What are your thoughts on that? Because I share your frustration with the latest research into management and the lack of management innovation in the 20th century. But what are your thoughts on sort of those historical sources of inspiration?
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing you bring up. I actually pinpoint the same thing in my book, Will China, surpass Silicon Valley? Management for a digital age, which is sort of the same theme. The book before this one, I mentioned that my observation of China, one of the strengths that they have is this more long-term mindset. And that is based on, those historical philosophers or, management gurus of the time in China. So I definitely think that it's of importance to understand that the RenDanHeYi model is influenced by Chinese culture way back, together with, a Silicon Valley practice, and, with practices from Germany, for example. I mean, they learn a lot on quality and efficiency and a lot of things from there. So I think they have been baking those things together like a salad, right? The Chinese, the strength of the Chinese tradition and culture and mindset, together with the Silicon Valley mindset, together with, the best of the best from Europe.
Thank you.
Great. Then I move over to Thomas, who is asking something that I think every one of us are thinking. Why doesn't more companies adapt to this way of setting up and running a business?
So Thomas, is a great question. We do see that more companies are doing changes. So I mentioned GEA in my book, but there are actually others. For VUCA Europe, for example, is a very interesting case that is described by a colleague of mine in Holland in his book, and they are doing very similar thing. So we see companies that are attracted to this and that want to sort of learn and see if this could be their holistic, method of doing it. I think what I've seen so far is that they usually start with things that is making more sense for them. One could be, could we create smaller teams, smaller groups of people that are becoming more agile and fast moving and that are more independent and have their own rights to make decisions and strategy. That is, I think, like a embryo to micro enterprises, which are true companies, legal companies. So many companies do that, and that seems to work. I mean, we know that also from Google and Facebook and other companies over here, that they work with those small, usually product-oriented teams. Spotify is doing the same. And then they might, adopt things like the zero distance to users because it makes sense for them to be customer focused. And I think, again, because we have been exposed for so many years now about the need of decentralization, creating smaller units. We have been, having gurus talking about the customer focus and customer centricity. So it's just making it, I think, faster to adopt of the RenDanHeYi model. And then there are other parts of the RenDanHeYi model. I think the hardest part is the compensation part. Because it's so far from what we usually have done. Like, you don't really have potentially a fixed salary. but you do have more of a provision-based salary, and you also have equity in your company. So everyone has equity, which is sort of borrowed from Silicon Valley, where I think they were, at least I state that in my first book, that they were the first region in the world that introduced equity for all employees, right? So equity and then more of a provision-based salary. That I think is maybe the hardest part for companies to adopt, because it's very far from many European way of doing it, and also in the US.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a question from Anonymous here who's saying, what type of coaching is needed to make this transformation happen? Are there new roles emerging to help companies?
So I have the luxury to know Edgar Schein, and the one that knows Edgar Schein, who he is, you know that he was the very father behind organization development, organizational behavior, and also corporate culture. And we have had a lot of discussion about, transformational companies. He also actually wrote the foreword to my book. So if you want to read what Edgar Schein wrote about the GA case, you can find that in the book as well. So I tend to agree with him that there's no blueprint. You cannot have a standardized, there's no one company coming in and say, this is the blueprint. This is the way you transform your business. Instead, I believe in the method that GA did it. They felt frustration because they understood it didn't work. Okay, so there is an urgency, there's a need. That's number one. Number two, you present a number of new principles, a new way of thinking. And then you allow the company to come up with a way of turning the principle into practice that fits them. And then you see this learning process, this transformation process, as an infinite journey. It's not going to be a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year. It's going to be an infinite journey. You will do almost like a product launch, right? You do a 1.0. And then you might add something from RenDanHeYi or whatever, principles that you want to adhere. You add some new principle to it, and it might become 2.0. And then after 5 years, 6 years, you might take the next step. So what GA did was that they did a lot of the changes during only 1 year. And then they refined it. They refined it like refining a product over the next 4 years. And not until 2021, they were ready to adopt the last principle, which was the ecosystem. So they started to fix their own in-house problems. And then they sort of spend time to first do the changes, disrupt it, then refine it, let it settle, let it, be sort of integrated there. And with continuously communication from CEO over the 4 years, where they refine it, they make sure that it's implemented, it's sustained, right? By continuous communication. And then in 2001, they're ready for the last piece.
Thank you very much. We have a short one here about Nokia. You didn't mention them together with Kodak and the other ones.
I know.
Do you have any knowledge about what happened over there and the learnings?
Yeah, I mean, I've studied the Nokia case as well. I actually used that as well as a case for my students. No, I should add Nokia to it. I mean, Nokia is a similar case to Kodak. They do have some business still, but it's of course very minor compared to who they were. And there are, again, a lot of written cases about the Kodak, the Nokia case. So yes, I could have added them definitely to the list.
Thank you very much. We have only one more question. So, and for this one, there comes another one. But we start. I would like Lennart, if you would like to ask your question yourself. See if Lennart is ready to speak. Okay, seems not. So, okay, here, Lennart, go ahead.
Yeah, hello. As we know, I mean, we have been discussing digital tools and the digital world. And as we know, there's a lot of tools and platforms that are optimized to run the original basic business, you know, ERP systems that handle basically everything from marketing, sales, and manufacturing supply chain. But I can notice that when it's come to change and making strategic decisions and making them fast, and at the same time combine a holistic view, which is complicated, and at the same time support micro enterprise model or self-managed teams, there seems to be a lack of tools that really can support in this process. Or do you see that there is something going on here?
So the question is if the RenDanHeYi could be the tool for make those management innovation happen, or sorry.
Or maybe the management principles and the models is one thing. And then when you come into the daily life and maybe larger organizations, they have hundreds of projects and thousands of ideas, and in some way you have to select what to do. And very often that is presented with Excel sheets and PowerPoint, and some management team has to look into this and doesn't maybe typically support self-managed teams or micro enterprises and everything. So if you want people to be entrepreneurial, something more might be needed in traditional Excel and PowerPoint sheets. Do you see that there is a trend? Is that a new trend that will come for the next 10 years? But we start to have digital tools that help us in strategic decision making?
I'm sure there will be, and I'm sure there already are. I talked, I mean, several years ago, for example, about AI, artificial intelligence, to help out with decision making. We now have companies that are focusing on, new tech companies that try to become the new billion-dollar companies, to focusing on only creating new digital tools in order to find quality problems anywhere in the company, more quicker, because, with the help of AI and data analytics and things like that. So I'm sure it will definitely pop up. And I know that Hire use a lot of technologies behind this model. It's not just they don't focus on the technology, and I really, I like that approach because it's not really about technology, but they support the management model with using things like, they do use platforms, right? They do use cloud, they do use big data, they do use machine learning or AI and big data analytics, of course. They use all those things. And blockchain for specifically, and when working in ecosystem, they use that for what they called, ecosystem smart contracts. Because when you build huge ecosystem with, maybe hundreds of participants, you cannot manually try to administrate that. It's not efficient at all, right? So you need to find new operation tools in order to, implement those kind of new management principles. So absolutely, there will be tools. What they are, I'm not sure outside of what I know from Hire, what they use, but they are coming more and more, I guess.
Thank you very much. We are up on the hour. We have a very short answer to the last question. I think the question is, those coaches helping GE appliances during the first years, were they internally or externally? And were they experts on RenDanHeYi? Okay, so this is a very good question because it's very important. GA, they don't really believe in consultancy and external coaches. All coaching was done by the mother company Hire. It's like Leif Östling at Scania that were taught by Toyota themselves, right? So I think you need to learn RenDanHeYi takes years.
and we could put coaches in your company that really know what it is about, but they did not use consultancy. I think to scale this, we need to train people so we can build a pool of coaches, because we cannot rely on hire for every change of every company. So that is definitely a new area where we can train coaches.
Great, thank you very much. And having that as the ending, I also added the link to your page with the classes that people can take if they are interested in this. So I would like to say that a lot of thank you to you, Annika, for this very interesting hour.
Thank you. Honored to
Anything?
be here. Enjoy your program.
Thank you so much, everyone who have participated, and we will send out a video and also a little more information about the upcoming webinar next week. And if you haven't signed up to the program, also more information about that. So thanks a lot, everyone who participated today. I think we were 60 people, so it was great.
Yes, and if you want to say thank you so much or something like that, or just goodbye, I will now unmute you or give you the permission to unmute if you'd like to say something before you leave. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Annika.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.